Simon Says subscribe and click on the bell icon to receive notifications.
In this section of the course, we're going to switch gears a little bit and we're going to talk about mail merge. And if you've never heard of mail merge before, it's a really quick way of creating multiple letters, multiple envelopes, multiple labels, and addressing them to different recipients. For example, if you have a letter that you've typed up, like the one that I've typed up on the screen right now, and you need to send this same letter to 20, 50, 100 people, instead of manually creating 50 letters, you can get mail merge to do it for you and add different recipient addresses onto the top of each letter. Now, in order to do this, you need to have some kind of recipients list. And the way that you address these to different recipients is you need to either already have a list of the recipients that you want to send these letters to, or you can import the details from your Outlook contacts, or you can type up the list manually yourself. Now, we're going to send this letter to 20 different people, and I have the 20 recipients stored off in an Excel workbook. So let's take a look at that first of all. So this is my recipients list. It's just a very basic table. I've got some headings at the top, and then I have my recipient details. So we have their title, first and last names, and then their address details. And this is just saved into a regular Excel workbook, which we're going to import into our mail merge. So let's jump back to Word and take a look at the ribbon that we're going to be working on in this section. Now, you'll find all of your mail merge options on the mailings ribbon at the top here. Notice we have a start mail merge group, and if we click the drop down, we can basically choose what it is that we want to merge. Now, we're not going to use any of these. We're going to go directly to the step-by-step mail merge wizard. And I would say that if you are fairly new to creating mail merges, use the wizard first of all, because it's really going to help you and guide you through this process. So let's click and notice that it opens the mail merge pane on the right hand side. Now I'm going to drag this out so it's a bit wider and easier to see. So the first thing we need to do here is select the document type that we're creating. Well, we're creating letters, so we can simply click on Next at the bottom. We now need to choose as starting document. So do we want to use the current document that we have open? Do we want to start from a template, or do we want to start from an existing document? Well, I want to put my recipient addresses on the top of the current document. So let's select that option and then click on Next at the bottom. Now it's at this stage that we get to choose where our recipient list is stored. So I can choose to use an existing list, which is the option we're going to use. I can import my contact details from my Outlook contacts, or I can type a new list. Now, if I choose type a new list and then create, it's going to allow me to essentially create a recipients list on the fly when I'm in the middle of the mail merge. So that might be something you want to do, or you might want to have them saved off somewhere else. So let's cancel out of this. We're going to use an existing list. Let's browse for the file. Now the file we're going to be using is this one here, address_list, and you'll find this file in the course files folder if you'd like to use it too. Let's click on open. It's recognized that all of my data is on the first sheet of the Excel workbook, and it's also recognized that I do have column headings in my data. So if you do, make sure that you have this little checkbox selected. Let's click on OK. So now it's going to open up this little Edit Recipients window. And this is just going to show me all of the recipients from my Excel spreadsheet. So it's effectively imported that data into Word. Notice we have the different columns. If you want to rearrange these columns, then you can. So for example, title, I actually want this to be before first name and last name, so I can simply drag and drop it. I'm going to put first name before last name, and I think also town and city is going to go before the state. Also notice that we have checkboxes in here, so if you don't want to include everybody in this list in your mail merge, you can go through and deselect different people. Then right at the bottom here, there's a few different actions that we can take on this list. So maybe I want to sort this list in alphabetical order. So if I click on sort, I could say that I want to sort the list by the, let's say, first name in ascending order. And that's going to change the order of my list. I could even apply a filter to my list. So maybe I just want to send this letter to everybody with the title Miss, something like that. And if I click on OK, those are going to be the only recipients included in my mail merge. Now I don't want to do that, so let's click back on filter and say clear all and OK to put that list back. We can check our list for any accidental duplicate entries, so I always recommend that you do that to make sure that you're not getting duplicate letters produced. And if we need to maybe check a specific recipient, we can search for any recipient we like in here. So maybe if I type in Dennis and click on Find Next, it's going to highlight that record in my data. So a few different things that you can do in here. Once you're happy with your list, click on OK. And now we can click on Next at the bottom to move to the next step. So this is where you have the opportunity to write out your letter if you haven't done it already. Now we have, so we don't need to worry too much about that. But the thing that we do need to add at this stage is we need to add the recipient address at the top of the letter. Now notice in the mail merge pane, we have an option to insert an address block. So if we click on this, this is where we get to choose how our address is formatted. So how do we want the name to display? I could choose to have just the first name, and you can see in the preview on the right hand side exactly what that's going to look like. Or maybe I want it to say their first and last name, or maybe I want to include their title. And we can scroll through and see what that looks like for each of our recipients. We can also choose if we want to include or not the postal address. So I'm going to say yes, we want to include that. Let's click on OK. And what we get in our document is basically what we call an address block field. And this is kind of like a placeholder which shows us where that recipient's address is going to appear on each letter. Now, the other thing I might want to have on this letter is I might want it to be personalized. I might want it to say, Dear Dennis, Dear Mark, Dear Sarah. And this is what we call a greeting line. So once again, in the mail merge pane, let's choose greeting line. I can choose if I want it to say dear or to or none. The format that I want to use, so for this I want it to say dear and then the first name, and then I want a comma after that. And for any invalid recipient names, it's just going to say dear sir or madam. And again, just underneath we can scroll through our recipients and get an idea as to what that is going to look like. So let's click on OK. So now that we have those two what we call merge fields in there, I'm going to go to the next step and preview the letters. So this is where it shows me exactly what my letter is going to look like when we complete the mail merge. And I can scroll through my recipients to take a look at all of my different letters. Now you can see in there I've got a little comma where there shouldn't really be one. That's probably coming from my data source. What I would need to do here is go back, remove that comma, and then select the data source again. So it's not too much of a problem. If I want to edit the recipient list at any point, I can choose Edit Recipient List, go in and make my changes. So I'm pretty happy with how these are looking. Let's complete the merge. And then we can choose if we want to send these letters straight to the printer or if we want to review them before we do that. So I'm going to say Edit Individual Letters, and I want to merge all of the records. So let's click on OK. So what happens next is Word basically creates a brand new document. You can see it's titled Letters 1. And in this document, we're going to find all of our letters. So I should have 20 pages with 20 letters contained on them, all with different recipient addresses. So you can probably see this is a much more time efficient way of creating multiple letters to send out to people. And that is pretty much how a mail merge works, using the step-by-step mail merge wizard. In the last lesson, we created 20 letters to send out to 20 different recipients. And for those 20 letters, we're going to need 20 envelopes with the same addresses on them. So once again, we can use the Mail Merge wizard to create those envelopes for us. So let's jump up to the Mailings tab and let's go to Start Mail Merge. Now notice in here I have an envelopes option, or I can choose to go through the step-by-step Mail Merge wizard. Now I'm going to use the wizard again, and this time we are creating envelopes. So let's click on Next to start our document, and then we can choose how do we want to set up our envelopes. So we can use the current document, we can change the document layout, or we can start from an existing document. Now I'm going to say I want to change the document layout, and I'm going to go to my envelope options. And this is where you can come in and select the size of your envelope. So this really depends on the type of envelope that you want to print these addresses on. So I'm going to just choose the default. I can also do things like change the font of the delivery address. So if I click on font, let's take a look at what we have. So I think I'm going to go for, let's go for Arial. And I'm just going to have regular font. We're going to make it 12. We could change the color if we wanted to. That's quite exciting. Let's do that. Let's make it a dark blue color, nothing too unprofessional. And click on OK and OK again. Now notice as soon as I do that, I get a completely different layout on my page. So this now looks more like an envelope. Now, this is quite hard to see because I don't have my show hide markers turned on, but if we turn those on, can you see that I have basically a little text box in the middle here? Because in general, your addresses are going to go in the middle of your envelope or in the middle towards the bottom. And you can move this up and down depending on where you want that address to appear. So let's just put this somewhere in the middle. And I think I'm just going to drag it to about there. So let's move on to the next step. So again, this is where we can select our recipient list. Once again, we're going to use an existing list. Let's browse. I'm going to pick up our address list one more time. Let's click on Open and OK. And once again, this window is going to pop open if we want to make any changes. Now, I want to include everybody, so let's click on OK. And move on to the next step, arrange our envelope. So this is where we can choose what we want to add. Now for this, I don't need a greeting line or anything like that. I'm just going to add an address block. I'm going to have the full name, including their title. So let's click on OK. And you can see where that appears. And once again, I can make any minor adjustments I need to by moving this little placeholder around. The next thing to do is preview the envelope. And we can see exactly what that is going to look like. Now I think I want to move this down just a little bit, so let's put this a bit further down here, like so. So I'm pretty happy with how this is looking. Again, I'm just going to turn off my show hide markers to make that a bit cleaner, and let's complete the merge. I'm going to say I want to edit the individual documents so I can review them before I print them. And if I scroll out a little bit so I can get an overview, this is what these envelopes are going to look like. The final thing to do here would be to load up your envelopes into your printer and then simply click on File and Print to send these off. In this lesson, we're going to take a look at how you can use Mail Merge options to create a full page of labels. So labels might be something that you want to print out and use on letters, or maybe you want to label something else. Maybe it's a set of cabinets, or maybe boxes, or something entirely different. Now, once again, you need to make sure that you make a note of the brand of labels that you're using, the type of labels, because this is going to be really important when it comes to setting up your page to correspond with the labels that you're going to print onto. So make sure you check the packet of your labels first, make a note of the brand and the size. Now we're going to do this in a slightly different way to the last two examples because we're not going to use the Mail Merge wizard to do this. So let's go up to the Mailings tab, and instead of going into Start Mail Merge and choosing this option, we're going to go to the Create button and choose Labels. Now this is going to open up the Envelopes and Labels pane. Now we're not going to add our recipients into this address area. We're going to do that a different way in a moment. Instead, all we're going to do in here is we're going to specify the brand of label that we're using and make sure that we set it up so that we're printing multiple labels on the same page. We don't really just want to print one per page. Now notice here that my label that I've selected is Avery A4 A5. And if you want to change that, if you click on Options, you can go in here, you can choose your label vendor, and then you can go through the different product numbers to get the exact label. Again, just refer to the information on the packet of labels that you're using. So I'm going to choose Avery A4 A5. Let's click on OK. And I'm going to say that I want a full page of the same label. So it's basically going to fit as many labels onto the page as it can according to the dimensions of each label. So once we're happy with this, let's say New Document, and there are my different labels. So let's zoom in a little bit and take a look at this first label. Now once again, I'm just going to put some of the addresses that we have in that Excel worksheet onto these labels. Maybe instead of printing an envelope, I just have a non-window envelope and I need to put a label on it. Or maybe I'm putting labels on packages. Now we can add what we call our own merge fields into our labels. Now you're going to find your merge fields in this Write and Insert Fields group just here. But notice at the moment every single option is grayed out. And that's because I need to attach my recipients list to this document first. So let's go to the Start Mail Merge group, choose Select Recipients, and we're going to use an existing list again. I'm going to use the same address list, so let's click it and click on Open. I'm going to keep all of this the same, click on OK, and as soon as I attach that recipients list in the background of this document, you can see that now I have a few more options available in this Write and Insert Fields group. So now I can go through and I can be very specific about what pieces of information I want to add to my labels. Now notice here I do have the address block to add the entire address and the name, but I could, if I wanted to, just pick and choose the fields that I want to use. So if I click the Insert Merge Field drop down, it's basically going to show me the column headings from my data source. So maybe on the label, I just want to have the first name and the last name and the state. I don't need any of the other information. So what I can do here is I can say first name. I want a space in between, so let's make sure we add that. And then we want last name. Let's press Enter. Let's insert another field. I just want to have the state, and let's also put the zip code. So let's press Enter again and zip code. Now, once I have all of this information in here, I can format it a little bit. So I'm going to select it and I'm actually going to put this in the middle. Now, if I want to move this block of text down, this is effectively a table. Notice that we have this cross at the top, and if I select it, notice we have the table design and the table layout ribbons. So this is where I can choose how I want to align this text. So in the alignment group, I'm going to say I want it dead in the center, like so. So now I have my merge fields in there. Let's go back to mailings and I can preview the result. So let's see how this merge data is going to look. I can even scroll through my different recipients just to see what that looks like for each one. Now that looks pretty good to me. Let's deselect preview results to take us back to our codes. So now that we have our information correct in the label and it's positioned correctly, how do we get this code into each one of our labels? Well, I guess I could copy and paste it into each label, but if I have 50 or 100 labels, that's going to be quite time consuming. Fortunately, we have an Update Labels button. So if we click Update Labels, it's basically going to put that code inside each of the labels. Also notice it's added a next record field so that Word knows it needs to move on to the next label. If we preview our results again, we should find that our labels are looking exactly as we'd like them to look. Once we've completed this process, we can then go to Finish and Merge. And once again, I'm going to edit the individual documents. I'm going to merge all records. Let's click on OK. And now I have my pages full of labels based off of my recipients list. I can now print these out and fix them to whatever parcel, letter, package I need to. So that is how you can use merge fields to include just the information that's of interest to you.
If you're not a subscriber, click down below to subscribe so you get notified about similar videos we upload. To see the full course that this video came from, click over there. And click over there to see more videos from Simon Says It.